Yes, I'm back. Who's back? Sophia's back. Yeah, well, I am back. Yeah, even though I've just had to drag myself away from Spain against Croatia at the Euros. Good game, actually. Croatia coming back from 3-1 down. And, boy, the Spanish goal in the first half, bizarre own goal. Sorry, yeah, the... Fucking hell. Well, you fucking up already. No, I meant the yeah, Spanish own goal in the first half was very bizarre. Well, anyways, I'm not here to talk about football. I'm here to talk about LGBTQ stuff. Though there is an LGBTQ angle with the Euros, we'll have to we'll be talking about that in due course. Oh yeah, Ozma was. I did ask Ozma to join us, but she hasn't responded, so I don't know what's going on there. Anyways, so on Saturday there was Trans Pride London, or London Trans Pride, and from what I heard, thousands of trans people turned up. Unfortunately, I was not one of them. I really wish I'd gone, but I had another engagement. And I did have a good afternoon, actually. So, yeah. But what's really good about Trans Pride London is the fact that there was thousands of trans people there shouting trans liberation. Yeah, it's still hard for me to grasp people doing this. I'd always wanted people to do this. I'd always wanted trans people to do this. You know, it feels like I've accomplished something, because I remember 20 years ago when I first tried to come out as trans, and the mantra there was like the Truska, what we now know as Truska mantra. It was, you know, you had to sort of do everything you could do to pass, and then after you had surgery, you know, bunker down and live in stealth. And I was sort of one of the first sort of trans women to sort of say, no, bollocks to that. And the reason I said bollocks to that at the time was that a lot of trans people were going, you know, society doesn't understand us. Now, society still doesn't understand us, but society does understand us a little bit better than it did. And the reason being is that people have come out from undercover, from you know, have basically come out in public and have been proud to be trans. That's what I wanted people to be. Proud to be trans, not to see it as a stigma. Sure, there's a, if you have gender dysphoria, there can be a lot of pain caused by having dysphoria, which I know all about. But at the same time, being trans, coming out as trans, is liberation. It is emancipation. And to have thousands of people on the streets of London shouting trans pride and fuck Liz Truss, I'll explain who Liz Truss is in a minute, is great. It's great to see, and I have tears of joy for people doing it. It really does feel like I've accomplished something. I don't know, people go, what have you accomplished? Yeah, I can sit as conservative. What have you accomplished? Well, I've accomplished the fact that trans people are prepared to stand up and say we're proud to be trans and fuck off to the turfs, yeah. Just read you a bit of this. Thousands of people gathered in central London on Saturday, 26th of June, to march for trans rights, the third ever London Trans Pride. Yeah, there was a Trans Pride last year. Obviously, last year was during lockdown, and I just think it's a bit sort of wasn't so keen on that. And I mean, some people said, well, technically we're still in lockdown. Not really now. And as long as people, mask up and don't get too near one another, unless they're part of their bubble, then that's fine. For more than 2 hours, trans and queer people streamed towards Wellington Arch by Hyde Park Corner until a large expanse of grass was obscured by protesters. Oh, it's worth mentioning that in the same day there was also an anti-lockdown march in London, despite the fact that there really isn't a lockdown now. I'm sure there are still some restrictions, and one hopes that those restrictions will be lifted in, soon enough. I know, the joke is that Boris Johnson has said the 19th of July, and come the 19th of July, he'll probably say August the 32nd. If you get that joke. But the reason I think trans, and I know some conservatives are going to say I am a hypocrite because, I'm all for trans pride, but I'm not all for Karens whining about the lockdown. Well, because trans people are still persecuted and oppressed, and a bunch of middle-class Karens, moaning that they have to wear a fucking mask to be considerate towards others. There's a gulf of difference, okay? So London Trans Pride organisers, an anonymous collective, said the main focus for the march would be demanding equal rights for the trans community, access to healthcare and legal recognition of non-binary people. Yeah. In the spirit of the movement of Pride, this event is no part in collaboration with police, they say. Yeah. Now, funny enough to mention that, I know that some trans women who are, shall we say, Tories, they sort of object to the sort of anarchist sort of element to this. Personally, I don't have a problem with it, because, well, do we need any more reminders? Derek Chauvin was sentenced to 22 years last week. Prosecutors wanted 30 years. As long as he's in jail for a long, long time, and his sentence is not reduced, nor his conviction reduced to manslaughter. He committed murder. He should spend a long time in prison for committing murder. Of course, Trump supporters probably thought he should have got, off of probation. Actually, all Trump supporters don't think he should be charged at all. But that's because they're racist, violent bigots. Fuck them. Pride is and always will be a protest. Yeah. Placards and banners made the demands of those gathered at Wellington Arch clear: healthcare, equality, gender recognition law reform, protection of trans kids, legal recognition for non-binary people, intersex rights, improving the material conditions of trans people's lives. There were reminders that Black Trans Lives Matter proud proclamations of dykes for trans rights. That's important because there are even trans people who think that any sort of lesbian feminist is going to be a TERF, and that's not true. I've known several radical feminists who are very supportive of trans people. They are not all TERFs. Okay, I remember one of the first was an American called Angela Keaton, and she basically said you can't ignore the trans contribution to the LGBTQ cause, which is true. You know, trans people were there from the start, the Stonewall riots. In fact, it was trans people who instigated the Stonewall riots. And yet again, can I just remind those conservative trans women who go, yeah, political protest doesn't get you anywhere. Well, what do you think the Stonewall riots were, you know? Fuck off. Yeah. Directed at Boris Johnson and his Tory colleagues. Protect the kids, stop banning puberty blockers, fuck Liz Truss. Yeah, Liz Truss, the supposed equalities minister who dog whistles to TERFs. Chanda Bing was trans, read one of the more light-hearted banners. Just before 3 p.m, the march set through the arch and towards central London. At the front, a person with a megaphone asked, "What do we want?" Well, to shout for trans rights. Obviously, when we do want them, the person shouted, "Now, yeah, the usual thing." Peter Tatchell was there. Good to see. He's taken a lot of crap from trans people for supposedly being transphobic. This is because he doesn't believe in censoring TERFs. Well, funny enough, neither do I. I know some people say, well, why is it then, you know, I laugh when, you know, TERFs get booted off Twitter. Look, Twitter is not a free speech zone. Twitter has its own TOS. It has never been it's never been a free speech platform. I've been in Twitter jail in the past. I served a 7-day sentence once for calling Jeremy Hunt a cunt. Well, you know, it's easily done. Seriously, there are videos of newscasters accidentally calling Jeremy Hunt a cunt. You could go and check it out for yourself. You know, if TERFs want to have their rallies and their meetings and whatever else, if they want to publish pamphlets and books, I'm not going to stop them. I'll counter-protest. People are... You see, here's the problem with the whole council culture debate. People now seem to think that cancel culture is people counter-protesting. No, it's not. People have the right. People have the right to counter-protest. Yeah. I mean, every time I've gone around, you know, the main Pride in London, there's always been those Christians with their stupid, you know, banners. You know, a bit like the Westbrook Baptists. They always get like a section they're sectioned off in the crowd when you go by, and fine, that. They have the right to shout their stupid, you know, bullshit, homophobic bullshit, as much as they want. But overwhelmingly, you know, their opinion is now in the minority, at least in this country. I mean, I will always, you know, you always have to speak out against homophobia. But the question is, would I always throw someone in jail for being homophobic? And I would say not unless they're violent. The column of protesters, or they incite violence, that's the other one. I mean, it's often forgotten that when Alex Jones was banned from Facebook, one of the reasons cited was that he was encouraging violence towards trans people. Which he was, by the way. The column of protesters slowly made their way to Piccadilly. The mood was noisy, jubilant. Were there thousands of people there or tens of thousands? It was hard to say. What we do know is a lot of people came out, and it was great. There were a couple of speeches, notably Abigail Thorne, better known as Philosophy Tube, and of course Monroe Berghoff, who I've met in my time, and she is this. Monroe Berghoff is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. Seriously, she is. Oh, she's just so lovely. That's all I can say about her. She's just lovely. And I'm going to talk about Monroe's speech, because Monroe takes a lot of shit. She takes a lot of shit for being trans and for being a black trans woman. Notably from people like Rose of Dawn. Seriously, Rose of Dawn really does have a problem with Monroe Berghoff. And let's not beat around the bush, right? It's because Monroe Berghoff is black and speaks up for herself. This is typical, I've heard like people that I'm not a racist, but I've got a problem with Diane Abbott. Why have you got a problem with Diane? Well, it's because she's a black woman who has a mouth and uses it. Yeah, that's why. I'm going to call racism out. Model activist and author Monroe Berghoff gave a powerful and emotional speech to thousands of trans and non-binary people in London today. Yeah, Monroe Berghoff does genuinely care. Seriously, she does. Fuck's sake, she gave me the time of day. Berghoff, one of the Britain's most prominent trans voices, was the first to speak in London's Soho Square after the third Trans Pride, London Trans Pride. Saw thousands of trans and non-binary people march through central London. Yeah, as I just trying. Anyways, I'm just trying to get to the speech here. Take a second to understand how important this is, how necessary this is, how beautiful this is. Yeah, trans is beautiful because trans is about liberation and is about emancipation. And those are beautiful things. Berghoff said to an enthusiastic crowd of queer and trans people and their allies after the march. She continued, when we have spaces like this, as a reminder to see God, it's a reminder to see God in each other. Whoever God is, a higher power to treat each other how we want to be treated. What do they call that form of that every person's a God? I forgot what they called it. Anyways, I don't believe in higher powers personally. This is not a moment. We are not a moment. This is our legacy. As different as we are as individuals, we are reflections of each other, intrinsically linked and spiritually bonded by community. This is evidence of community. Yeah, there's a lot of sort of like trans people on the right. There's a thing is the trans community. Yes, there is. Oh, yes, there is. And I found out about that during the pandemic. The two trans women who live locally to me have helped me enormously through the pandemic with various things, and I will be eternally grateful to them. There is a trans community. The reason conservative trans women are sort of poo-poo the trans community is that they've got an issue with being trans. Seriously, they somehow still, because conservatives tell them that being trans is bad, so naturally they're going to still think that there's something bad about them being trans. No, there's not. And also, they're usually ostracized from the trans community because they take positions which, go against the general trans consensus. India Willoughby has found this out the hard way. More about India later on, funny enough. We are stronger together. We cannot let idiotic counter movements like the LGB Alliance and TERFs and gender critical feminism. Gender critical feminism is the least critical of gender there is, of any form of feminism. Tear us apart. At this, there was a long, loud cheer from the crowd, who were packed into Soho Square and the surrounding streets. To me, transgenderness is divinity in the purest sense. To live in a world that does not see you, that ignores your suffering, that legislates against your existence, that strives to control your bodily autonomy, that stimulates, simultaneously fetishes you and dehumanizes our image. That is divine. To resist that. What? Don't quite get that. That is divine to resist. It's divine to resist. Yeah, definitely. Well, if you believe in divinity, I don't, but I do think that, yeah, she's right here. She is right here about this. This is the bit I was going to talk about. Basically, at one point, conservatives are always trying to, basically control trans people, yet fetishize us. Yeah, because for instance, we know that most of the people who watch Blair White obviously are conservatives, and they're probably just like, oh, of course, she's a chick with a dick. Oh yeah. Yeah, seriously, that's basically it. They get off on it. It's you'd be surprised the amount of fucking homophobes and transphobes out there, who will mouth off in public with the most hideous of hate, who are gagging to have sex with either, some young, a young man, or some pre-op trans woman. Still we show up and we shout out, and we show up and we show out and we keep going. To me, that is divine. That is strength. Yeah, it is strength. Someone actually asked me, what's the point to Trans Pride? What's the point to Pride Month? And I sort of said, well, the fact that we still stand proud despite all the shit we get. That is worthy of love and respect and peace. You only need to look around to see how many of us there truly are. No matter how isolated we have felt in our past, we are no longer silenced. We are no longer in the shadows. We are here. Take up the space. The space is yours. Yeah. Do not allow bigots to control the streets. That, you see, if we all cower in our homes, then the bigots, have the streets, don't they? We need to get out there. Anyways, obviously I wasn't there for this speech, and I tried to find a video of it. There wasn't one, not on Twitter at least. As I say, Monroe Berghoff, she is a credit to our community, and fuck Rosa Dawn for constantly having a go at her. It's just pure and utter racism, and probably a bit of jealousy, because Monroe is seriously good looking. Now, yes, I know Stuart Kenny's in the chat. Now, I should explain something here. Stuart Kenny, who's one of my one of my chat admins, once served India Willoughby chips. There's a lame claim to fame. It was before. Actually, I was actually tempted. I've got a photo of India before they transitioned. I was tempted to show it, but I'm not that much of a cunt, considering how much of a cunt she is. Compared to how much of a cunt she is, and believe me, India Willoughby is a cunt. She's a true scum cunt. Anyways, so it's this. Look, first of all, this is the headline. India Willoughby says socially quits GB News, accusing channel of opening the gates of hell for trans people. Alright, for those in America who might not know what GB News is, basically it's this new news channel which was recently launched and probably won't be on air for very much longer, which we'll get to. But because it's shit. It's basically a 6 foot. Someone I heard, I think it was my fiance, described it as a 6. It said it's a 6-form video project trying to make it out that it's Fox News. The production values aren't great, and it's been beaten in the ratings by Welsh language shows. Now, I'm not laughing at Welsh language shows, okay, but the Welsh language is is not widely spoken even in Wales, okay. Yet the ratings for Welsh language shows beat GB News 5-1. Anyways, so back to India, right? India Willoughby sensationally quits GB News, accusing channel of... well, I've just said that, haven't I? Anyways, here's the thing. Some people have sort of said, well, didn't she know that, a reactionary right-wing channel was going to be transphobic? The answer to that is she knew it before she joined. In other words, she had every plan of quitting before she signed up, right? So that she could get a bit of attention. Seriously, that is India. This is the kind of shit India Willoughby will pull, right? Now, she is right. So, I'll read you some of this. India Willoughby has refused to return as a commentator on GB News, accusing the channel of demonising trans people at every opportunity. Yeah, but India is also transphobic herself, which we will get to. There's a video I need to go through, where India Willoughby, within 4 minutes, is one of the most transphobic diatribes I've heard in that amount of time. Willoughby recently agreed to appear on a controversial news channel, GB News, as a commentator, appearing weekly on the panel of Live Tonight with Dan Wooten on Sunday nights. GB News, which launched this month, was the first UK news channel to be set up on an explicit political leaning, according to the BBC, and it is something that appealed to Willoughby as a patriotic person with right of centre. She doesn't have right of centre. She's far right centre of views. She told Pink News, first of all, she's not just anyone who says they're patriotic are people who wrap themselves up in flags, are insecure. Anyways, but India Willoughby is extremely insecure. We know this. The whole thing when she was in Celebrity Big Brother about the whole trag-phobic thing. Remember that? If anyone remembers when she was in Celebrity Big Brother and I had my hand my face in my hands constantly at how cringeworthy she fucking was and how embarrassing she was to the trans community. Because believe me, her opinions are not the majority in the trans community. I mean, she goes around saying that the LGBT community are like the KGB towards her. No, we just call you out for your bullshit, your hateful bullshit, India. Anyways, the whole dragphobic thing when she was in Celebrity Big Brother, all that stems from is that she, and I've been there. I remember this myself. She was probably, when you first come out, I was scared when I first came out of being compared to a drag queen. I was scared. I was scared that, somebody would think I'm, some fetishistic transvestite, as it was at the time. Or, I remember being that sort of insecure. Now, obviously, I'm not that insecure now. And I felt, one time I didn't like the fact she was acting out her insecurities because, saying, going up to a drag queen and saying you're drag-phobic, it's like going up to a black person and saying you don't like the N-words. That it's in that league. And so, there's a part of me that absolutely cringes and gets angry at the shit she said. But there's another part of me which just wants to hug her and say, India, it's all right to be yourself, hon. It's all right to be trans. You know, don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Just be yourself. Yeah, there is that dichotomy with me. When it comes to India, I don't hate her. I just feel someone needs to stage an intervention. Basically, I've said in the past that someone needs to stage an intervention to prevent her from actually getting into a TV studio, because she's not helping herself and she's not helping the trans community, acting out her insecurities, essentially. Now, as for GB News, well, it's going down the pan. I don't think it'll be on air for much longer. And as for it being transphobic, of course it's going to be fucking transphobic. It's a reactionary right-wing, news channel. That's what it's going to be. However, as I said, I don't think it's going to be much on air for very much longer, particularly as the guy who set it up has also seemed to have quit GB News. Yeah, that's right. Andrew Neil, who founded GB News, has basically bailed on it. Now, I do find this odd that he's taken leave 2 weeks after the channel started, and the channel is struggling. Thinks he's gone. That's it. He realises he's on to an on. I mean, there is a video on YouTube. I thought about putting it into the running order, but I didn't. Where he was whining about there's a campaign to get advertisers to withdraw from advertising on GB News, the GB News channel, and he was getting annoyed about that. Let me put it out this way: if GB News were in a stronger position, he wouldn't be moaning. He knows. He could see the writing on the wall. Yeah, if they were confident, they wouldn't be worrying about that. I can tell you that. Also, I had to include it in the running order, but people might have seen Sean Ryder was on GB News. He dropped the F-bomb before 9 p.m. He was on with Neil Oliver. Now, I used to like Neil Oliver, the Scottish historian with long hair. Then I found out he was a complete right-wing reactionary, and I think, what a dickhead. Funny as hell, what is it with historians being right-wing reactionaries? I just think of David Starkey. Yeah, I know some people are going to go, well, Simon Sharma's left-wing. Simon Sharma's liberal, yes. But also, can I point out Niall Ferguson is also a right-wing reactionary? Though I will say Niall Ferguson did make the Ascent of Money, and that is actually a series worth checking out. Even if you're an economist like me, and it's, for those who don't know, Soph's academic forte, field of academic expertise is economics. And so watching programs like that is like teaching my grandmother, is teaching me, it is like teaching grandma to suck eggs. But still, I watched it and I thought, well, yeah, he talks about the basics and, does it in a relatively good way. So yeah, check that out. Niall Ferguson, Son of Money. Even if Niall Ferguson, was an advisor to John McCain. Anyways, so yeah, I don't hold much hope out for. Oh yeah, so now I was going to talk about Sean. Oh, fuck. Yeah, Sean Ryder. Yeah, Sean Ryder appeared on GB News with Neil Oliver. Dropped the F-bomb. But the hilarious thing is, he was meant to be on there to talk about youth issues. Has anyone seen Sean Ryder recently? He does not look in the prime of youth. He's lost all his hair. And I mean, for fuck's sake, the Happy Mondays was 30 years ago. Actually, longer than that, wasn't it? Was it 89, 90? Yeah, just over 30 years. Yeah. I mean, and personally, I always preferred the Stone Roses. Yeah. Someone in chat, Hugh had I thought the captain's better go down with the ship. Not fucking Andrew Neil, no. I mean, no, Andrew Neil, yeah, he's seriously right wing. We know this, But he isn't all bad. I will say, check out the interview he did with Ben Shapiro. Because he made Ben Shapiro look like a complete and utter fool. That I do enjoy. Me and Osma have been through that interview on this channel before. So, yeah. Anyways, I was going to say about India Willoughby. Look, I don't call her a true scum cunt for no reason. And I said I'd get to this video. So this is a response to when Eddie Izzard fully came out and said they wanted to be referred to as she, her pronouns. And, well, India was just really nasty, as you'll hear. This is just
Sunday.
Yeah, sorry. So content warning here. This is transphobic. It's true scum, as you'll hear.
J.K. Rowling isn't transphobic, says Eddie Izzard.
Oh my God! What an absolute dog's breakfast trans has become. I don't really know where to start here, Kev.
First of all, I will say this: Eddie Izzard is wrong. J.K. Rowling is transphobic, and I will say that India has called J.K. Rowling out for being transphobic, but that's only because, and you can see there at the top of the list there that there is that video. You can go and watch yourselves. But I'd only say that. Sorry, the only reason India said that called J.K. Rowling out for being transphobic is because that obviously affects her. When it affects India, then India will speak up. But when it doesn't affect India, when non-binary people get shit, she'll help the transphobes dogpile onto non-binary people. Why? Because she's not non-binary. Yeah, it's only when it affects India that then she'll speak up about transphobia, which I find hypocritical.
First of all, I'll say this. Hell will freeze over before I, as a trans person, actually call Eddie Izzard she or her.
Right. First part of transphobia. There you are. Refuses to respect Eddie's pronouns. Now, listen to the reason why.
Because he's a he. What does it say on Eddie's passport?
Yeah.
On his gas bill?
You don't know that, India. You see, India doesn't know that. I don't know that. And why can't you just respect that they want to be referred to as she, her? I mean, what's wrong about that?
On his driving license, he's a he. He hasn't transitioned. And this is the whole problem with the word trans in speech marks at the moment. You have transvestites grouped alongside.
Right. Anybody who now uses the word... I know I used it earlier, but I said that was what we used to refer to it back then. Obviously, gender fluid is the term to use. Any person, any trans person who uses the term transvestite in 2021 is a true scummer. You can tell, right? And this is yet again, this is what I meant by India's insecurities. She is scared to be compared to a transvestite. Look, let me tell you something. You can tell there's a huge difference. I don't know. I'm trying to think of some well-known drag queen who people would know now. Well, obviously Courtney Act, who India was in the Celebrity Big Brother household with. People can tell the difference, India. They can tell the difference. Okay?
Side trans transitioners, I call them, people who actually physically transition and permanently move to one side, and they live that life with no fuss. They don't go through life waving a banner or holding a placard.
All right, yeah. So we should be satisfied with being kicked around and treated like second-class citizens. Is that it, India? Typical fucking conservative. Protesting doesn't get you anywhere. Well, let me think. the Tolpodal Martyrs, the Charterist movement, you know, you wouldn't have the fucking suffragettes, you wouldn't have the fucking vote if it wasn't for those movements. Those were direct action movements, and they worked. You know, the Stonewall riots, you know, as I've said before, anyone who says to me, political violence and political protest don't work, well, bollocks, they do. Yeah, I campaigned it, you know, I protested against apartheid, right, in the 1980s. Oh, what happened? Oh, yeah, apartheid was dismantled, right? Yeah, scored a victory there, didn't we? Yeah. Fuck off.
Or have rainbow hair. They just get on with their life.
What's wrong with having rainbow hair? A bit of colour in the world. We're not all dowy fucking, you know, anally retentive cunts like you, India. Some of us like a bit of colour in the world, okay?
And unfortunately, because you have this motley crew of all sorts together, trans people, real trans people...
Oh, throwing people who are diverse under the bus. Oh, it's always their fault. It's not my fault for being a bigot, of course. It's always... And this is something I've always spotted with India. It's always someone else's fucking fault with her. Typical fucking conservative.
Face a really hard time. So I do not think that Eddie Izzard is brave or pioneering. I think he's extremely selfish. I think he's indulging in his own fantasy.
Did I just hear? Yeah, I just did hear that. India, there are people there are TERFs who will tell you that. How fucking dare you? You know full well, and she knows full well, because I have had correspondence with India in the past. I warned her against the route she was taking. She told me not to patronise her. Fuck you, India. You know, I was proven right, because you've been ostracised from the trans community, and, you know, I mean, it's basically, here's how it is, right? With her and Blair White and Roosevelt, they seem to think that, you know, they've done everything to conform to what people expect a woman to be. You know, they've ticked the boxes. You know, you know, conservatives should make an exception for them for being conformist. No, conservatives won't make an exception for you. They will always fucking hate you. All right. You know, Caitlyn Jenner's learning that in America. All right. Well, she isn't actually. You know, basically, Caitlyn Jenner's finding. Well, is she finding it? Well, she's not learning, but Caitlyn Jenner's certainly finding that out. The fact that, you know, says that Eddie Izzard is living in a fantasy, when there are TERFs who will turn around and say that trans women are living in a fantasy about being trans women, is hypocritical, disgraceful, disgusting, repugnant. Okay? Really, this is why I don't want India on fucking television or radio when she says shit like this, because it's actually dangerous. It really is. You know, I know some people say, well, what about free speech? And you say, yeah, I know. I can't stop her being on radio and television. I just wish she wasn't. Okay? As I said, I wish someone would stage an intervention and say to India, stop it.
Of what it is. If Eddie wants to be a woman, then he should transition. And Eddie, the other thing I will say,
they kind of have, actually, India. And who are you? You see, this is the other thing. This is the thing with true scammers. They think they're the arbiters of what and what isn't trans. No, you're fucking not. No, I'm not either. Okay? I'm not. I am not an arbiter of what is and what isn't trans. Okay? I'm not. Right? I'm not a fucking expert. You know, I've always said this. I am not a fucking expert.
Eddie's actually listening, which I guess he could be, is, Eddie, you don't actually speak for people like me. You know, you're a trans...
Well, guess what, India? Even though I'm a trans woman and I've had medical intervention, as you have, you know, you don't speak for me. Can I just say that? India Willoughby does not speak for me. I mean, Eddie Izzard doesn't speak for me, especially when they say J.K. Rowling's not transphobic. Give it a few years, and I think Eddie Izzard might change her mind about that. Yes, I almost said he. I know some people. You still fuck up. Even I do fuck up. But no, Eddie Izzard is a she, and I respect that. Okay? I'm not India Willoughby.
It's best night, so I'm sure you don't get offended by J.K. Rowling saying that trans people are men in dresses, because that is effectively what Eddie is. But for somebody who's
J.K. Rowling's not just saying that about people like Eddie Izzard. They're saying it about you, India. They're saying it about me. In fact, today, actually, I'm not wearing a dress. I'm wearing a skirt. But anyways, it's summer. But the point is, they say it about all trans people. India. TERFs hate all trans people. All right, sure. They say things about trans, but they're a little softer on trans men, saying, well, they're lesbians who just went a bit far. No, they're not. Trans men are men. Okay, fuck off.
who's gone through a medical transition, it is transphobic. And although I totally believe in free speech,
right, okay, so she just basically explained what true scum is there. Said medical transition. Yeah, what people have often asked me, what does true scum mean? It originally meant a trans person who believed you weren't trans unless you had gender dysphoria and went through medical intervention. Okay, so in some ways, I've ticked all those boxes. Now, one thing I will explain. One of the reasons I took against India is that I can't have bottom surgery for various reasons, including the fact I've had a heart attack. Okay, and India expected me to explain my medical history on Twitter to justify myself to her. This is a person who transitioned a long time after I did, who knew nothing about the attitudes and the opinions of the trans community, and didn't seem to want to know either. Like, basically lecturing to me and expecting me to justify myself to them. Fuck off.
JK should be absolutely allowed to say what she wants. Free speech and freedom of choice does actually work both ways, in the sense that people aren't obliged. If people don't like what they hear, just as much as I don't like a lot of what I hear about Black Lives Matter, and I tune off or I switch over the.
Yeah, she probably doesn't like the fact that black people are standing out for excuse me, so that they could have their for social justice. Yeah. She's probably bigotry's intersectional. So as well as being transphobic, true scum, she's probably a racist as well.
TV.
Actually, she I know that she's had a tongue up Nigel Farage's arsehole in the past on Twitter. And actually she blocks me on Twitter, so yeah, she does block what she doesn't like to hear. Yeah. Because so does Kelly Maloney for that. They also block me because they're similar to India. True scum, bigot.
That's my choice.
Yep.
That's freedom. That's democracy. So there's no obligation under free speech and freedom of choice for people to actually listen if they find it distasteful. And whether J.K. Rowling is transphobic or not, that is for trans people to decide. Nobody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think we can all make a decision. I think her standpoint is fairly straightforward.
I'll just say, as an aside there, there's plenty of people under the trans word at the moment, and this. I vehemently disagree with them. I think they're ludicrous. They're absolutely crackpots. I could talk all day about it. I would be classed as being trans myself. I would
transphobic.
Currently as being transphobic, trying to stand my corner against somebody like Eddie Izzard, which is crazy. But that's why it's a dog's breakfast.
Yeah, just let people live their lives. Whatever you want to do, whatever makes you happy, do it. And as long as you're not doing anyone else any harm, just let everyone get on with their lives. Stop turning everything into such a drama. That's what's going on, I think.
Now.
I've said this before on your show. I think the problem in the trans world is that they need to split. People who medically transition have got to leave LGBT. No. No.
I mean, all right, for starters, I'm also a lesbian, so I wouldn't. But she doesn't like the LGBTQ community because she's probably deep down obviously we know she's transphobic, but also a homophobe.
The word transgender now means nothing to me. I don't identify. It has nothing about it.
No, I get it. Yeah, absolutely.
To me, it's a campaign for transvestite rights for non-binary people who are largely made up of 10 years ago. They would have been emos. You know, the people.
Fuck you! I've never been into emo. I've never been a goth. Fuck off. Fuck off. Fucking hell. You know, having said that, I've known some really lovely goth chicks in my time. Sure, I own a copy of. I do own a few goth, what could be classed as goth albums. You know, The Cure's Pornography, which, in my opinion, is still their last great album. And the Cult's Love album. But no, I've never described myself as a goth. Not that I remember. Fuck off, India. Just, you know, I mean, the other thing is some people say, oh, it's generational. Well, India's actually, I think, only about 5 years older than me. So we're both Gen X. And, no, it's not generational. It's just that she's she's a bigot, and like all bigots, she's insecure. I saw that Freya said something interesting in chat about, you know, India Willoughby wants everyone to adhere to sort of a 1950s stereotype of a woman. Yeah, that's basically, that is what true scummers want. Okay, particularly India and Blair White. So yeah. Anyways, enough of that. People might have seen this in the news. UEFA slammed over meaningless pledge to respect the rainbow that didn't mention LGBT plus people once. Yeah. Few things, obviously, for those who don't know, the Euro 2020 football championship. I know people are going to go, it's 2021. Yeah, it's postponed since last year. So it's still referred to as the Euro 2020 football championship, of course, going on at the moment. As I said, I've pulled myself away from Croatia against Spain. Actually, could someone in chat tell me what the score of that game was? It should be over by now. Find out for me. Anyways, so UEFA, there have been accusations that UEFA have been turning a blind eye to homophobia in Eastern Europe. Well, yeah, and I did the last video I did with Ozma. For those who don't know, we did do a video very late. We streamed very late at night after the England-Scotland game, mainly because we were chatting and we just decided to stream because I was talking about how England players were getting booed for taking the knee. Because England fans are a bunch of racists who listen to way too much Nigel Farage, saying that Black Lives Matter is Marxist, and not realising that when Nigel Farage says it's Marxist, he's not referring to Karl Marx, he's referring to the anti-Semitic conspiracy, cultural Marxist conspiracy theory. But, you know, taking the knee is not just Black Lives Matter, it's also against homophobia and transphobia. It's also against ableism. So you're booing people who are showing solidarity with disabled people. Alright. Anyways, the whole accusation about UEFA turning a blind eye to homophobia. Well, they have been there's not one single country, of course, that's hosting Euro 2020. It's obviously these games are being held across the continent, including in countries like Hungary, Poland, and Russia, which are decidedly have decidedly homophobic governments and transphobic governments. Recently, of course, the Hungarian government passed a piece of legislation which is akin to what we knew as Section 28, which was brought in by the Thatcher government, which prevented the promotion of supposed homosexual propaganda to kids. The same deal in Hungary, though I think it's even worse, even more draconian there. And yet, you know, there have been games being held in Hungary, and I think there's still one more to be held there. Well, there is, because there's a story about that. UEFA have been slammed. This was last week when Germany played Hungary. I think it was. They wanted to light up the stadium in the rainbow colours to show solidarity with with Pride Month. And well, UEFA prevented them from doing so. However, UEFA have gone back on that decision, sort of. UEFA approves pitch-side rainbow ads, sort of, as I said, sort of, for Euro 2020 game in Hungary, despite banning rainbow lights in Munich. Yeah, and I have seen that. When I was watching the football earlier, I did see those adverts. But lighting up the stadium would be, a lot more sort of. It would be seen in. Well, it would be seen. I think it would be a bigger statement. UEFA have approved pitchside, rainbow pride advertising for all Euro 2020 round of 60, including Hungary, despite banning rainbow lights at Munich. At the Munich's Alliance Arena. Earlier this month, UEFA blocked the Munich's Alliance Arena from lighting up a rainbow colours for Germany's Hungary Euro 2020 game. Of course, Germany play England tomorrow at Wembley. And, well, bye-bye England. Even though Germany are not the force they used to be, the way England have been playing, I can't see them beating Germany. Sorry to say it. And also, I mean, the other thing is, isn't it sad that I have to... One of the reasons I want England to do well is so that, idiotic gammon... Spain won. Thanks, Freya. Okay. At least it didn't go to penalties. I always hate penalties. Mind you, it was better than how they used to decide matches after extra time, which was a coin flip. Famously, that worked in Celtic's favour though during their when they won in their run to win the European Cup in 1967. If I remember rightly, there was one game which was decided on the flip of a coin. Seriously, yeah. And of course, Celtic have got a new manager and Pochettino. Of course, that's the most important news of all. He started taking training at Celtic, so yeah, I know. Anyways, so do I think that right? Where were yeah? So anyway, so I was saying the reason I want England to do well at championships, I remember when England did well at the last World Cup, and I could see that moods were lifted, but at the same time, one of the reasons is that I hope is that I don't that England the gammon don't take their fucking racist insecurities out on LGBTQ people or anyone who looks a bit different, because that happens. I remember when Euro 96 was proclaimed a success. What the media didn't report at the time was after the England match, England lost against Germany. There was a whole load of violence in central London. Yeah, people forget that. I don't want there to be violence, period. There shouldn't be. It's just a fucking football game. I know some people say, oh, what about you and Celtic and Rangers? Hey, you don't see me going punching some Rangers supporters, do you? Nor would I. Yeah? I just speak out against those Rangers supporters who are, well, Nazi cunts. Because unfortunately some of them are. Not all of them. And also the other rumour is that I hate all Rangers supporters. No, I don't. Alan McGee, the founder of Creation Records, which gave us Primal Scream and Jesus and Mary Chain and Ride and My Bloody Valentine and Swerve Driver and of course later Teenage Fan Club and Oasis. He's a Rangers supporter. Yeah. So, and I have to thank him particularly for all the shoegaze stuff. He helped give a career to, and Primal Scream. I mean, I was reminded it's 30 years since Primal Scream and Screamadelica. That was brilliant. If you could get one album, I would urge people to go and listen to right now. Is Primal Scream and Screamadelica. Brilliant album. Rumoured to be a concept album about getting high on E. Funny enough, about taking an E. So, as I say, there is problems in Eastern Europe with homophobia and transphobia, and well, actually, might have got this in the wrong order. Hold on a second. Yeah. I've forgotten it. Shit. Basically, there's a few EU leaders who have been a bit quiet, but they have, and surprisingly, that includes the Portuguese Prime Minister. Now, the reason I say about some of the homophobia and there was a letter supporting LGBTQ rights, which most EU leaders did sign. But one of the notable absences was the Portuguese Prime Minister, and I say it's surprising because the Portuguese government is a centre-left government. I don't know there's some cultural issue there. Weird. But anyways, so Luxembourg's gay PM blasts Hungary's reviled anti-LGBT law in devastating speech. Accepting yourself is already hard. Well, yeah, it's hard because you're taught not to. I was told this. It's really funny because I was listening to Jim Sterling give an interview to Owen Jones. For those who don't know, Jim Sterling does a lot of gaming stuff. Came out recently as non-binary, and they said that the parents of their generation, and Jim's of my generation, and their parents tried to force any sort of like weirdness out of them. Any diverse what they call weirdness or what we might call now diversity, right? And it's really funny that they mentioned that because I ended up being looked after by a foster family, and my foster mother was socially liberal, but at the time they were like decidedly anti, sort of not very normal. It was obvious that I was struggling with gender. In hindsight, it's obvious now that I was struggling with gender dysphoria, but they were trying to sort of like make me conform to like everyone else, and I remember speaking to my foster mum many years later about this because before they died, they finally did come to accept I was trans and were proud of the fact I came out as trans, funny enough. And they said to me the reason they did that was because they were actually scared that I could get hurt. And I can understand that. To be honest, I can empathise with that because it was a different era, and in those days there was more of a likelihood of getting the shit beaten out of you. I mean, one reason I've always been a supporter of Jeremy Corbyn is that Jeremy Corbyn spoke up for LGBTQ rights in the 1980s when you were vilified for doing so. remember, this was the days of Section 28. The Tory government was decidedly homophobic and transphobic. It was a very dark days. I know that people have talked about the recent drama. Was it? It's a Sin. You know, the Russell T Davies drama about the LGBTQ community in the 1980s, and how well it sort of depicted life back then. Now, I was a kid back then, so I don't, I do remember quite a bit, but I wasn't out as LGBTQ then. I didn't really start to inch out until the 1990s. And still, attitudes then weren't always great. I mean, they're still not. I mean, for fuck's sake, we kind of like revel in. We pretend to revel in this, that we're a tolerant nation. Go into your local Wetherspoons and you'll find it's a very different case. Anyways, the Luxembourg Prime Minister is not the only PM European leader to have spoken out against Hungary. The Dutch PM, Hungary told to leave EU by the Dutch PM. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to criticise EU leaders here. Though the leaders of the EU should be taking more action against these Eastern European members whose governments are, basically discriminating and persecuting against LGBTQ people. I kind of think it's a bit fucking ominous when you have the Polish government bragging they have LGBTQ free zones. Yeah, that is something you'd expect fucking Adolf Hitler to fucking brag about. And I hate to make the comparison, but, people seem to think that anti-Semitism was solely, an issue in Germany. No, it was an issue throughout Eastern Europe and parts of Western Europe as well, Dad. So, anyways, I tell you what, I'm just going to check something, and see if I might have to end this a bit earlier than I'd want to, but I just need to check something. Right, okay, I'm going to end early. I think Stuart, Kenny and Freya will know why. Yeah, it's a certain other person who's streaming and I want to go and join them. I'll get to these stories, the rest of these stories sometime this week. Don't worry, I should be back. Hopefully be back. Yeah, sorry, I'm still forgetting how to do certain things. There you go. All right. So, anyways, folks, hopefully I will return sometime. It's a bit of hit and miss at the moment, but I won't go into details, but there's various things going on. Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a like. If basically you think people should hear what I have to say, well then please share it. On your timeline, on your Twitter, Facebook, whatever else, other social media you're on. If you get any feedback, do drop us a comment down below. And most important of all, please subscribe. That's the most important thing right now. Right, until the next time, take care of yourself and stay safe. All right.